Well, hello again, and welcome to episode 8. There's been a bit of a delay with episode 8 because I've been very busy in my law practice these days representing happy people in divorce and child custody cases. But that's a whole other story. Today we're here to talk about inner peace and happiness, and there's not a whole lot of that in divorce and child custody cases, so much for that. I have said in some of our talks, particularly in the last one, that finding inner peace and happiness and experiencing the awareness of the presence of love or the presence of God in our lives is more about undoing something than doing something. And the undoing we're talking about is undoing the egoic belief system that we all operate under from our early childhood days when we learn about it. And that is the system of thought and looking at reality that says to us that we are separate individuals who are separate from God and separate from our fellow human beings. This is something that has been discussed by many in many books and many talks, many spiritual paths. I read a great book recently that I'd like to recommend. The book is called Spiritual Science. It's by a British psychologist. His name is Steve Taylor. And I want to read you a short excerpt, which means I have to put on my glasses. And he talks in the book a lot about materialism and how materialism as a philosophy and as a scientific methodology permeates the worldview that we've operated under for quite a long time. And he talks about the characteristics of materialism. And here's something that he writes. He says, quote, I have even suggested that normal awareness is a kind of, quote, sleep, unquote, which has two main characteristics. The first characteristic is our strong sense of individuality and separateness from the world around us. Our normal experience is to feel that we are an, quote, I, unquote, that lives inside our own mental space with a boundary between us and the, quote, external world, unquote. We feel that we are in here, in quotes, with the rest of reality, unquote, or rather, quote, out there, unquote. This strong sense of individuality creates an uncomfortable sense of isolation and lack, which I think is the root of the impulse to accumulate possessions, wealth, status, and power. As separate entities, we feel incomplete, fragments broken off from the whole, and by accumulating wealth or power, we're trying to bolster ourselves, to make ourselves feel stronger and more significant in order to compensate for our sense of lack, unquote. Absolutely 100% correct. That's the problem. And part of the undoing of that problem, as we've mentioned before, has to do with the concept of forgiveness. And again, forgiveness is defined in so many different ways, and it's a controversial subject, but it's not, I think, what we tend to believe it to be. Forgiveness isn't about excusing or pardoning or saying, you hurt me, but I forgive you. I'm not going to hold that against you. I know you did it, and it was wrong, and it was mean, just so you know. But I'm going to let it go. Because if you do that, you haven't let it go. And if you're carrying around a grudge or a grievance inside yourself for years, even if you've told the person that you've forgiven them, and even if you think that you've forgiven them, you haven't forgiven them because you're holding on to that grievance. And if you're holding on to the grievance, if you're holding on to that judgment about what occurred, it will interfere with your sense of happiness and inner peace because it will block your awareness of the presence of love, both in yourself and in the other person. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that ultimately we are all expressions of God's love. We're all individual manifestations of that. And if we don't see that in ourselves and we don't see that in others, it blocks our awareness of God. It blocks our awareness of love and what we're made of and what they're made of. So forgiveness really involves being able to give up, relinquish, surrender, and let go of our judgments and our grievances about others and ourselves. Don't judge yourself. Don't hold a grievance against yourself. If you've made mistakes in the past, okay, you've made mistakes in the past. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you anything less than an innocent child of God who is a manifestation, an expression, an extension of the love of God, just like everyone else is. Love your neighbor as yourself means love God, love all that there is, and relinquish and surrender those judgments that make you feel guilty or that cause you to project guilt on other people. If you can't let go of that, you'll never have inner peace or happiness. So let it go. And I mean, really, let it go. See you next time.